First of all, welcome President Johnson Sirleaf. I want to welcome all our distinguished panelists and participants and our co-host, the governments of Brazil, Canada, Liberia, and the Netherlands. And thank you for your partnership and strong support. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. And of course, please, the ones who don't wait until the speeches end to eat, because you won't be able to eat, because we have a lot of people who will be very enthusiastically explaining and committing, etc. Well, it's wonderful, as I said, to be here with all of you. And this is a very exciting event for us. Today, all of us, well, I should maybe introduce myself. My name is Michelle Bachelet. I'm the Executive Director of UN Women, one of the 4 agencies that are launching today's initiative. And we're all very proud because to launch this joint program, accelerating progress towards the economic empowerment of rural women, that includes, well, not only UN Women, but of course Food and Agriculture Organization, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, and the World Food Programme. And I want to recall who we're talking about when we say rural women, even though we have here rural leaders that will be speaking in a much better way than me about it. But we're talking about women all over the world who work long hours as farmers, laborers, but also entrepreneurs. But when that work is done, they return to work more long hours caring for their children and their families. They earn a pittance for their farming, laboring, and selling, and for their work in the household, they earn nothing. And when we talk about rural women and girls, we're talking about 25% of the world's population. The majority of them are smallholder farmers, and 43% of the agricultural labor force in developing countries. But perhaps providers is more fitting name. What they provide, water, fuel, food, and income, sustain their families, their communities, and their nations. Rural women fill empty plates and hungry bellies, while they themselves are often running on empty. You see, rural women aren't underperforming because their productivity is low. They are overperforming given the limited resources they have at their disposal. And together, we can change that through laws that promote equal rights, equal opportunities, and equal participation so they can feed their children more and sell their goods at the market. Through better policies so they can benefit from trade and finance and make a strong contribution to inclusive economic growth. Through basic services so they can work with less risk to their health and have a bank account and access to energy and clean water. And through a better division of labor so they can have more time to do a better job on all the work they do at home, in the fields, in the market, and in the workplace. When women are empowered and can claim their rights and access to land, leadership, opportunities, and choices, economies grow. Food security is enhanced, and prospects are improved for current and future generations. Now, rural women has been at the center of high-level debate for quite some time, and especially at the last session of the Commission of Status of Women at Rio +20, and as we discussed, the post-2015 International Development Agenda. Rural women have been lauded as the solution to ending poverty and hunger and to sustainability. We have seen repeated commitments to invest in women and agricultural development. But despite such promises and pledges of support, very few resources have been directed towards improving the everyday lives of rural women. That's why we are excited about this program and the changes that will come in the 7 countries of focus: Ethiopia, Guatemala, Kyrgyzstan, Liberia, Nepal, Niger, and Rwanda. The program taps into the respective strength of our 4 agencies: FAO's Policy Assistance on Agriculture and Food Security, IFAD's Rural Investment Programs, WFP's Food Assistance Innovation, and UN Women's technical expertise on women's economic empowerment. But through this program, we will deliver as one so rural women can lift themselves out of poverty. And here are how it works. Our strategic framework addresses 4 important areas: women's status, rights, access to resources, and agencies. And we are working towards 4 clear and distinct outcomes. Our first goal is to improve food and nutrition security for all rural women by helping women, smallholders, farmers, increase their productivity. And we'll do this by working with national and local governments to provide women with better access to and control over productive resources, such as technology that makes food processing better and more efficient, by supporting food banks, cooperative and nutrition awareness campaigns, and by making sure that critical services like medical checkups, land registration, and legal advice are available to women in rural areas. The second goal is to support rural women to increase their income so they can better sustain their livelihoods. And we'll focus on getting more financial services to rural women entrepreneurs so they can get their businesses up and running, and so they can take full advantage of the market. Our third goal is to increase rural women leadership and participation so they can shape laws, policies, and programs and take charge of their own futures. We will support women to take on leadership roles and actively participate in producers' organizations, cooperative and unions, and engage women and men advocates to raise awareness of rural women's rights. And our fourth and final goal is to create a more gender-responsive policy environment for the economic empowerment of rural women. We will provide policy assistance to countries. Thank you. We are already delivering as one. Thank you, my friend. We're supporting each other, yes. Well, we will provide policy assistance to countries to mainstream gender equality into the food, agriculture, nutrition, and rural development policies and legal frameworks. And we'll pilot an agricultural index to keep track of the progress in each country. Working together, we will scale up and expand innovative models that work and make a difference in rural women's lives. When women are empowered and can claim their rights and access to land, leadership, opportunities, and choices, economy grow, food security is enhanced, and prospects are improved for current and future generations. Now, all of us know that making a difference requires vision, planning, and commitment. And this is why I appeal to you as representatives of governments, civil society, and the business community to join us in this partnership. Working together with rural women, we can make a real and lasting difference now and for generations to come. If I may say it in a very simple way, we can walk the talk. So thank you. And now I have the pleasure to give the floor to my good friend, José Graziano da Silva, Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Presidenta Michelle Bachelet, for this introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to be here to launch this program between the UN Women and the 3 Rome-based regions. We have a tight schedule, so I wanted to immediately introduce to you the President of Liberia, Ms. Shirley Johnson. I believe that she does not need any presentation, but I would like to highlight that she was the first woman elected the head of state in Africa, and she also is the Nobel Prize. So I would like to give the floor to Ms. Shirley Johnson.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm just pleased to be here. Would like to say a big thank you to the 4 institutions that have sponsored this event, and to see so many people participating. I think it's the consensus regarding the role of women gets stronger by the day. The 56th session of the Council on Women's Equalization has just talked about how the status of women have improved. The MDGs that focus on the empowerment of women has shown women's participation in all spheres of our society have been enhanced. Sustainable development, as discussed in Rio, identified women empowerment as one of the major issues that have to be addressed, indeed, if development will be sustained. And as we begin the dialogue on the post-2015 agenda, again, women focus very prominently as to what we do. And if you're dealing with women in Africa, clearly, you have to deal with rural women. The bulk of our women live in rural areas. They feed the nation. They do most of the farming, most of the marketing of food products, the storage, and then they also take care of their families by feeding them. Women, rural women particularly, face the odds that we all know of, the lack of access to the factors of production, access to land. That's improving in many of our places where women today do get title to land. Women have inheritance rights today. Access to capital, there are lots of micro loan programs that are in our countries, but the number that can access it is so small because the large number of rural women either don't have institutions in their localities that they can access, or the amount of the financing is not large enough to be able to support the large pool of women. Access to markets, even though we say that they are the ones that provide most of the marketing, but you're really talking about small domestic marketing. It's a question of how do you elevate them to another level whereby they can become, through cross-border trading or through exports, they can be able to scale up the size of their marketing activities. Access to technology. Although we have some very, very good examples of how that is improving. We hear about what's happening in Kenya with communications technology, and how rural women now, through their telephones, can access finance, can have marketing information going across, and so that in itself. So the 4 institutions that have come together, UN Women, FAO, IFAD, World Food Program, have talked about how do we focus on rural women's participation and leadership. Our own example in Liberia is that we've organized the rural women into association. They've had elections so that they selected their own leaders. Those leaders have also recently gone and organized them at the community level to make sure that those leaders at that level also determine what kinds of programs that they will have. Much more of that needs to be done. If we are going to improve their leadership skills, then we must also do something about literacy, because most of the rural women, illiteracy is a big issue for them. We have started some literacy programs, as I'm sure most other countries around the world have started that. Again, we're far behind in Africa and in Liberia, so we have to scale up what we can do. their leadership also requires going beyond literacy, because many of the rural women are also literate. Many of them are intelligent. Some of them are even educated, highly educated. So how do we build upon those attributes that they already have and ensure that they can move, to a different level? I think they also seek, this program seeks to improve food and nutrition security. And for that, rural women needs to get help in seeds, in tools. All the things that enable food production are something that we can all help them with. Nutrition, sometimes one finds that the farmer, I know it happens in our country, produce the food but prefer to sell it rather than to use it themselves, for themselves and their children, because getting the income is more important to them. So again, that requires changing the mindset of ensuring them that they need that nutrition first, and helping to provide them information and training. Increasing their incomes. Clearly, that's the end result. Raising their per capita income through the means we talk about, through the enhancing of all of these factors of production to which they have access, enables them to raise to that level. Microcredit is good, it helps, but it's not enough. If we're going to move them into an income level where they can sustain their business and can grow, then one has to find a means to be able to do more. I see in the audience one of my compatriots who just tells you that just some additional program. We have a Goldman Sachs program. It's a worldwide program. Many of you may have heard about it, 10,000 women. Liberia is one of the beneficiary countries for that. And what it does is to train these women, particularly those who are in marketing, where you consider it a small business entity. How do you train them to be able to know how to sell their products, how to price their products, how to determine their profits, and have them move up? And somebody, I think, may be speaking, she's right here, one of our compatriots who started selling palm oil, 1 gallon palm oil that she sold, and she was exposed to this program. And as she announced the other day at another meeting in which we participated, that her container of palm oil had just landed in New Jersey. So, so Keba is a rural woman herself who just being given that additional one. How do we have responsive policy environments? One of the objectives of this. And it means that those of us in decision-making roles must be able to look at some of our laws, some of the laws that constrain women from reaching their potential, some of our social habits that tend to exclude women and place them in a category where they cannot take full advantage of what they have. And so we must all look at that. We must look at the examples of so many in other places where women have been successful promoting women cooperatives. I know in the Kamsuk, I'm glad that World Food Program is one of the sponsors, because they may recall that in Liberia, World Food Program supported a school lunch program in which they brought in the food to feed the lunch program. Well, the women, with the support of our Minister of Gender, decided that we could produce the food to sell to World Food Program, thereby saving them having to import it. And successfully today, the school lunch program in Liberia is being provided by these women cooperatives. They produce the rice, they sell it to WFP, and that brings a lot of local savings and also set a good example for other women to follow. We need to do more about technology. Too many of our rural women still do back-breaking agriculture with the whole intermediate technology where available in more developed societies than our own. We need that networking and those examples that can be used to be able to enhance them to a place where they can produce more and their productivity can increase. But today, I'm very pleased at what's happening as regards rural women. Finally, they have their place in the development architecture. They have found their voice. And that's one of the most important and pleasing things. Today, when we go into rural areas and we meet with our women rural leaders who are there, they can stand up and say to us, we now know what our rights are. We now know what our potential is. We now know what we can do. We can go into a meeting, a town hall meeting that's usually led by men, but we can go there and we can stand up and we can say what we want. We can tell them that we have a right. The head of my chairing squad is Keba because she knows what I'm talking about. And that to me is the greatest thing that can happen. We try to make this organization that we formed, Rural Women Association, what we're trying to do is to give them, to enable them to reach their members and to talk about the things that they can do. We couldn't afford to give them vehicles, but we gave each of them a motorbike. And so we have great rural women motorcyclists who go around and carry their message. I'm just so pleased to be a part of what's happening with this transformation regarding rural women. I'm glad that I have a small leadership role in which I too can be a part of promoting them and supporting them and enabling them and empowering them. And the results are just so pleasing to me. And I would like to just say to all of you, the 4 institutions sponsoring this, the bilaterals that are sponsoring this, that we've come a long way in ensuring their role in society. But we still can do more because they are the heartbeat of our society. They are the ones that determine what the future will be. And by giving them a future, we gave our nations a future, and we gave the world a future as a better place for all mankind. Thank you.
Thank you, President, for your very stimulating words. Of course, we can do more. And exactly that is what this program is about, empowering women to do more. And I believe that now that the 3 Rome-based agents, together with the UN Women under the leadership of President Bachelet, we can do much more than we have been trying to do alone by ourselves. And I would like to introduce our next speaker, Quebec Sumu, rural woman leader from Liberia. I ask her to share her experience with us. Ms. Sumu, you have the floor.
Good afternoon to all. And as a rural woman from Liberia, I am pleased and honored to be here today. I would like to thank Her Excellency, Madam Ellie Johnson Sirleaf, the organizer that invited me to join the important event to share my experience. We have talked more about economic empowerment for rural women. It begins with an open door to us to speak for ourselves, the voice of our concern and our needs and interests. As a rural woman in a developing country, I feel 3 levels of discrimination. Being a woman in a society where women are free and treated as inferior due to culture, religion, social protection, norms, and attitudes. That make us to be marginalized decision-making process. Being poor because we have less access to land, ownership, capital to share up our business, to educate, access decent and well-paid jobs. We also have less access to sea, agricultural service, other services such as transportation, market information, and technology. We are extremely bound by unpaid work in home, facing water, firewood, cooking meal for our farmers, taking care of our children and the elder and other members of our family. Being isolated because we live in a remote area, far away from market, and other opportunities that irritate and deprive of most key infrastructures and services. Everybody recognizes on the paper that rural women, we keep our family, our community, our country going. We are farmers, producers, workers, entrepreneurs, champion for change. We nurture and invest in our family, especially in our children, so that they may become better educators, access better job opportunity, and have better living standard. Also, when a woman in change of leadership, the community see the difference. Through what she patronized, education, health, children, daily bread for her family. Our president, together with the government and developing partners, have done a lot for us. And we have benefited from programs such as Rural Women Program, Cross-Border Training Program, Joint Program of the United Nations on Food Security and Nutrition, on Gender Equality, Women Empowerment. For instance, we have benefited from storage facilities, farmer products such as seed tools, rainbows, fertilizer, and agrochemical. But this is dropped in the oceans as a sea of numerous, especially in poor war conflict countries. We have more support to expand and implement more programs like the one big one launched today to reach the wide range of rural communities. And for this, I tell you that second to the last paragraph, when my hero was speaking, you saw me clapping my hand. I who stand here today, for me to stand and more men to talk, it was not something, I didn't even see it with my mother before I say other people. My grandmother did not do it before I say my mother. But today, when Kebesmo arrived at her village, the men come. Oh, where is Kebe? We want her to go and talk. Because during the war, we all feared the war. But because of this program, some of us today are now town chief for our villages. We can go where men used to go, and we can speak where men used to speak, and they can't stop us no more. So I want to tell all the partners thank you for this program. Even through this today, Kebesumo is no longer a ruler or remote woman. today she can boast that she is an entrepreneur who today can afford to send her children to school, feed her extended family, and help in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sumu. Very stimulating. Really an experience that should be reported. And, well, you all heard. I don't need to say anything more. I can't say anything more. That's... well, we are very happy that some actions are already in place and bringing results that we can see. We hope that this program will help to improve. Many more examples can be found about this new future that we are designing. I would like to now to welcome someone very special for FAO. You know that 2012 is the International Year of Cooperatives. We are now commemorating and trying to push the farmers to work in cooperatives, work together. This is the way out for the small farmers to get access to modern tools, to credit, to sell their products for a better price, etc. So it was my honor when I took office in FAO to nominate a woman special ambassador for FAO to the years of cooperatives, Ms. Elizabeth Atangana. She is the president also of the Pan-African Farmers Organization and special ambassador of FAO for the International Year of Cooperatives. Ms. Atangana, please, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Her Excellency Ellen Johnson, Sirleaf, President of Liberia, Mr. Director General of FAO, Jose Graziano da Silva, Mrs. Bachelet, Executive Director of UN Women. It's an honor to be here today. First, I would like to thank you for your invitation in this important meeting to give our view in how, as farmers, women leaders in Africa, we are able to accelerating progress toward economic empowerment of rural women. Ladies and gentlemen, rural women plays an important role in the life of households at the community level as well as the socio-political level. Women are dynamic. They produce and transmit cultural and educational values. As far as the agricultural sector and food security is concerned, over 70% of women are employed, particularly in areas of food crop production, small-scale processing, sales of surplus products in local markets and national borders. Paradoxically, these women tend to be underrepresented, although they occupy an important part in the agro, silvo, and pastoral sectors. Women are working, but when it's the time to take a decision, women are out. Rural women should be supported to increase their participation in the production and creation of value-added products for food security and nutrition. This required transformation at the political and institutional landscape and the involvement of all key parties under the auspice of government, international institutions like FAO, IFAD, WP, UN Women, etc., and also bilateral cooperation agencies, NGOs, the CSOs, the private sector, farmers' organizations themselves, all those who are involved in creating an enabling environment for rural women. The role of men in the demolition of gender stereotypes include the involvement of passionate men in gender-sensitive approaches in order to influence decisions to define the interests of rural women, convincing men to change their attitude vis-à-vis women requires the following measures. It's a need to increase an efficient involvement and participation of the rural women in decision-taking circles at all levels. Elaborate and implement specific programs direct to women in order to increase their access to productive resources, land, water, energy, subsidies, and capital. Support farmers' training centers and train rural women in entrepreneurship and innovate technologies as training and traveling. Open us area of production and increase the market access, infrastructure for storage, processing, rural transport. Improve on the support package geared towards sustainable family farming. Intensify campaign and introduce special support package for the fight against pandemic as HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. It's also a necessity to introduce direct support for farmers' organizations and women associations, introduce changes in stereotypes to address gender issues at community level. The development of cooperative networks is very important because apart from many local services offered by the cooperative, they help develop human resources which are able to represent and participate effectively and efficiently in policy debates, strategic planning, land tenure, natural resources management, access to market, and access to information. Therefore, cooperative development is an efficient and easily adaptable socio-economic development tool. Also, it enables the empowerment of favorable mentalities aimed at recognizing the capacity of women and increasing the participation of women and men in decision-making within farmers' organizations and cooperative. Example of efficient approach to ensure women leadership and participation at the level of decision-making. In Africa, for example, PAFO, Pan-African Farmers Organization, and PROPAC, Regional Platform of Farmer Organization in Central Africa, statutes required elected officials to address specific issue of gender. To strengthen the leadership of women, a quota of 30 to 40% representation was adopted by the World Farmers Forum. The Advocacy Support Project for Economic Empowerment of Rural Women in Cameroon, supported by National Consultation Forum of Farmer Organization and UN Women, is aimed at raising awareness and engaging policymakers on different issues. First, improving the percentage of funding toward women in various projects in agricultural and rural development. Second, increasing the number of women in the steering committees and a selection of projects and programs. Third, strengthening the ability to collect data, information, and carry out gender-sensitive analysis. Four, improve on the involvement and participation of rural women leaders and their ability to better articulate their preoccupation. Five, expand pilot project to touch more area, more women and men, thereby creating a critical mass of champions on the valorization of gender-sensitive issues for men and women in decision-making cycle. Her Excellency, Mr. Director General, Mrs. Bachelet, ladies and gentlemen, we need to mobilize more resources and ensure continuous support to farmers' organizations, cooperative to enhance food security and nutrition, create jobs, sustainable jobs, and empower rural women in order to reduce labor intensiveness, facilitate access to credit and inputs, facilitate access to transport infrastructure, support the development of centers of education exchanges, training, and information so that women have more access to new technology, strengthen their entrepreneurial skills, managerial capacities, literacy, and ability to participate in decision-making. Together, I hope, we must work in integrate better policies to bring about change at the organizational level and facilitate women empowerment and access to products access. We need to act. It is urgent. We need to act urgently, and we need to do it now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's give another round of applause to our speakers, particularly to Her Excellency President Sirleaf Johnson. The President apologizes to all of you Unfortunately, she had another commitment. She changed her schedule. I will say she doppelgangered her schedule to ensure that she could be here with us today. And we appreciate the time that she was able to spend with us. At this point, I'd ask all the panelists to please come and join me at the front of the room. And while they're coming up, let me just go ahead and begin, because we have a very large panel in a very short period of time, and we want to make this as productive as possible. My name is Earthryn Cousin. I'm the Executive Director of the World Food Program, one of the 4 agencies sponsoring today's event. I am excited about the opportunity we're launching today and the conversation that we're engaged in here today. Because what we're doing as the 4 agencies is committing to cooperate for action and change on the ground. Not about building new architectures, new structures, new global programs, but new and more action and more outcomes for the benefit of women on the ground. And that is something different in the UN. So now we have 6 members who have committed to participating in this panel, many of them who don't need introductions, because when you talk about the work of development, the work of women making progress in rural communities across the least developed countries of our globe, these are the leaders who help us make that happen. And I'm going to start with the way they gave them to me, which is Rob Swardahl is the Director General for International Cooperation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the Netherlands. He's held that position since February of 2012. He previously served as Deputy Director General during 2011. From 2009 to 2011, he was a director for the Department for the United Nations and International Financial Institutions for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And Rob, I get to say, is not only a funder, supporter of WFP, but a friend. And I want to start with you, Rob, with 2 questions. And those questions are, how could the economic empowerment of rural women be better emphasized in the debate on inclusive growth and in the aid effectiveness agenda? And as the chair of the informal group on food and nutrition security, how can donor countries enhance the circumstances under which rural women can empower themselves economically and have better nutrition and food security? Rob, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Earthryn, and thank you. Congratulations to everybody for this fantastic event and the launch of this initiative. That's great to see. Your question about how could the economic empowerment of rural women be better emphasized? Well, first of all, I'm extremely glad that we see now, so we have that behind us, we see now women as part of the solution and not as part of the problem. So I think that's, we finally reached that phase. What I do when I talk to people, I say, well, you know, why is this important? You can take it from several sides, from the moral side, from the human rights side. Most of the time I try to focus also on the economic side. Because the World Bank, as you know, in the World Development Report, clearly said that gender is smart economics. It's smart economics. And I recently read, it's actually a report of the FAO, which is quite amazing. It says there that if women, it's just an example, but it's very striking, if women would have the same access to production means as men, the total agricultural output in developing countries would grow with 2.5 to 4%. Now, if you translate that to the number of people with hunger, which would go down if this would happen, it's about 12 to 17%. Now, we talk about 100 to 150 million persons. This is if you give women the same access to production means as men. Now, maybe the FAO was, even if half of it is true, this is quite remarkable. And we have, in the west of Africa, we have done some projects and programs where the results are even better. So smart economics, that's an important argument. What is also very helpful is, and that's lacking a lot, is data. If you want to convince people that this is the way to approach, you have to have data. And what we see a lot is that data are aggregated. And I would say if you have gender disaggregated information, that enormously helps. And we in the Netherlands, we've just introduced a monitoring mechanism for our programs on food security and water, just doing that. So that's immediately clear what the benefits and the impact is of empowering women. And these arguments we should bring to the forefront more often. The second question, what was that again?
As a chair,
the chair.
serve as a chair of the informal working group.
Well, first of all, what we say always is that economic empowerment itself is an extremely powerful tool to improve food security and nutrition for women and girls. That is obvious. What we try to do as well is to work together with all actors involved. So that means, obviously, we know that the CSOs, the NGOs, the government, the local governments, local organizations, but more and more we think it's pivotal to include the private sector. And just as an example, what we have done in the Netherlands, and I see some of the representatives here, we have the Amsterdam initiative for malnutrition, where my ministry, together with great companies like Unilever, DSM, you know them all, by the way, CSO like ICO, the University of Wageningen, we combined forces and we said, listen, we have a program here to fight malnutrition, and we set targets as well. And we said, listen, we want to bring down the number of children with people with malnutrition with 100 million. Now, these are serious targets. So this is how we do it. And the next meeting, and I will tell you already, of the group you was referring to, we will invite UN women as well, because we think it's key for food security and nutrition. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for pointing out the importance of data and disaggregating data. And it's a conversation that we in the Rome-based agencies have been having for the last several years, is how do we develop the mechanisms to provide us with the ability to have reliable disaggregated data from the country level. And so that is a challenge that, hopefully with support from donors like the Netherlands, that we can tackle. Let's go to Milan Verveer. Milan, since April of 2009, has served as the ambassador at large for the global women's issues. She is the former chief of staff to then First Lady of the United States, Hillary Rodham Clinton, and Milan is also the co-founder and chairman of the board of the Vital Voices Global Partnership, an international non-governmental organization that supports global women's leadership. Milan has been the voice of women for many years, and I have been a part of her band on a number of escapades that we have moved forward for the past 20 years. So I'm honored to have her here with us today. Milan, from your experience, can you tell us how empowering women politically, socially, and economically is critical for sustainable development? And what innovative approaches and partnerships have been particularly effective in economically empowering rural women?
Well, thank you, Earthrin, and thank you for your leadership and everybody who's bringing us together here today. I want to be either part of Rob's band or part of Rob's choir, however that comes out, because I want to underscore what he said. As many of you probably know well by now, one of the key development investments of the Obama administration is our Feed the Future program, a $3.5 billion commitment to strengthen the world's food supply through accelerating the productive capacity of farmers. And we have many partners working with us and many stakeholders to tackle that. But one of the key points is the one that Rob made, and one in which we're trying to incorporate significantly. And that is recognizing what that FAO report so significantly and seminally presented to all of us. And I just raced over here from CNN, where I was talking about women as problem solvers, and they flashed up the key data that Rob just mentioned on the screen about the stunning outcomes if we would enable women to have, women farmers, the great majority in many places around the world, the majority of small farmers in many places, the backbone of many an economy, if they had the same access to the resources that they need, from training to fertilizer and seed and everything else, what that would do, as he pointed out, not just in terms of their immediate productive capacities and yields, 20 to 30%, but in the long run, the statistics he gave you. So what we're doing in Feed the Future with our partners is integrating gender into all aspects of the program, because it's the most obvious thing that has to be done if we want to get the results we all clearly want. And that means measuring the results to ensure that the goals are being met. Now, several months ago at CSW, we launched the Women's Empowerment in Agriculture Index, which is the first ever measure to directly capture women's empowerment and inclusion levels in the ag sector. And the index is being used for performance monitoring, for impact evaluations of our Feed the Future programs around the world, and it's been piloted in 3 countries so far, in Bangladesh, in Guatemala, and Uganda. I just came back from Bangladesh, where stunting is a huge problem. The nutrition levels clearly need to be raised, and what is being done to incorporate women in significant ways to the kinds of solutions for greater nutritional impacts, I thought was very impressive, and I hope over the long haul we do see the kind of effective outcomes we want. Secondly, the whole area of public-private partnerships. I think I came in late, but Kebe, I think, spoke from Liberia. And, you know, she's an extraordinary story. A woman, a small entrepreneur in agriculture, who received training through a program sponsored by the private sector, in this case 10,000 women through Goldman Sachs. Her palm oil is arriving this week in Newark, as she probably said. Here's a small farmer in Liberia who is able to access a market she couldn't have dreamed of that long ago. And this is where we're trying to put an enormous focus, whether it's through our African Women's entrepreneurship program or through what we call We Americas. These are lots of partners who've come together with the State Department to focus on what are very big hurdles for women entrepreneurs, rural women in a significant way, access to the kind of credit they need and can't get, access to markets, huge, huge issue. And then the kind of training and networking that opens up the doors for them to be able to have prospects they could not ordinarily tap by themselves. So whether it's Kebe or it's many of the farmers that we're working with in other parts of the world, we're beginning to see results by virtue of the access to resources that is being made possible for them in the areas that they need most. And training and markets, as well as capital, are huge.
Thank you very much, Milan, and thank you for underlining Rob's statements, recognizing the outcomes from that FAO report of what the opportunity we have for driving positive outcomes by investing in women. And I can tell you, you really missed something when you missed Kebe this afternoon.
I have heard her.
She was amazing. Our next panelist is Margaret Biggs. Margaret was appointed president of the Canadian International Development Agency on July 1st, 2008. Prior to her appointment at CEDA, she was deputy secretary to Cabinet Plans and Consultation in the Privy Council Office, a position she held since May of 2006. Margaret is a strong advocate on women's issues, and she is one of the people who is always asking WFP, what are you doing on gender? Margaret, Canada plays a key role in leveraging political support on rural women's issues in UN processes. How can we ensure that the economic empowerment of rural women will be a priority in the post-2015 agenda? As a member state, we need your voice and help on that issue. How can aid be made more responsive to rural women?
Well, thank you very much, Ethrin, and I will join in the other. It's going to be a big band at the end of the day. Well, first, I think we need the kind of leadership that we're seeing here today with UN Women, FAO, IFAD, and the WFP coming together, joining their forces, in an integrated, coordinated way, focused on results and targeting rural women, and that is not rocket science, but it's not happened before. So that's a tremendous step forward. So congratulations to you. Secondly, we have to put women at the top of the post-2015 agenda. I think that's an inevitable, but it may not be inevitable, but we have to make it happen in terms of the post-MDG architecture. Women remain, despite the progress, and rural women in particular, still the face of poverty and of hunger, still face significant barriers. So there has to be women at the center of the post-2015 MDG agenda. Thirdly, if I could just echo what Rob said and others, women are invisible unless we can count them. We don't have the data that we need. We can't address the needs of rural women if we don't know where they are and what they need. So sex-aggregated, disaggregated data is what we need in order to really be able to focus on those results. Fourth, I think there's a momentum building on a number of agendas. Milan talked about public-private partnerships, etc. Some of us this week are focusing on the new alliance on food security and nutrition, Grow Africa, and others. And inside each and every one of these forward change agendas, we need to make sure that we are leveraging them to focus on women and particularly on rural women. So, for example, in the case of the new alliance for food security and nutrition, we have to make sure that actually empowers rural small landholders, most of whom are women. When we talk about creating enabling environments for the private sector, we need to ensure that we specifically address those barriers that women, entrepreneurs face, whether that's land, credit, technology, transport. We've heard the list today. And that means, as others have said as well, we need to help women move beyond microcredit and micro businesses and subsistence activities and move them up the value chain because they're capable of doing that, as we've seen here again today. And finally, if I can echo what Milan said, in Canada, we integrate and we push our multilateral partners to do the same. A focus on women in everything we do. And so we're focusing on food security, we're focusing on women's health, we're focusing on sustainable economic growth, and we're building women into all of that. But we also have to target in our bilateral programs those barriers. So, for example, in Bolivia, we're working with our partners for women's access to control over property, credit, and markets. Same thing in Ghana. We're working with UN Women to build a knowledge gateway so we can pool what we know to be the best practice and knowledge so women themselves can be empowered and take the information they need to and the tools they need to gain control of their lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margaret.
And you asked me a second question.
The second question was, how can aid be more responsive to rural women?
Well, kind of all of the above.
Right.
And we have to integrate it in everything we do, but we have to also target those specific barriers. And we have to integrate women in the decision-making around everything we do in the programming we do. So if they're not, and we heard that, if they're not part of the decision-making, if their needs aren't being heard and taken into account, well, then we won't really be making an advance. If I can give you an example of something that I visited not long ago in Indonesia, where we work on the island of Sulawesi, we're working with the local government there, local stakeholders, civil society, women's groups, farmers associations, very rural, agriculture, forestry-based economy, and working on their ability to have gender-based decision-making, gender budgeting, got to have the data, so that they then can target the needs of women and women entrepreneurs in their local economy. And without that, again, we're kind of driving blind. So that would be an example. And maybe I'll stop there.
Okay. Thank you very much. And there's a theme going here between empowering women, integrating women into the work that we're doing for the success of women. And it's always interesting when you have panels like this and you have the people who are doing the work, when you hear that the blending of all of the responses. There is no contradiction here. The challenge is ensuring that we continue to take these kinds of conversations into the work that we perform on a daily basis. Our next presenter is Gonzalo Robles. He is the Secretary General for International Development Corporation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation in Spain. He is also a parliamentary representative for the Partido Popular, the People's Party, at the Spanish Chamber of Deputies. Mr. Robles, thank you so much for being here with us today. Can you share the experience of Spain in economically empowering rural women? We've heard how Canada deploys assets and resources. It'd be very interesting to hear any comparisons or contrasts between what Canada's doing and what Spain is doing. And also, how can we ensure that rural women benefit equally from current and future financing to support rural development and agriculture and climate change adaptation and mitigation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. First of all, I think this is a very good idea to put together these important agencies and programs. And you know that Spain has very strong works and support for these agencies and programs, and we want to continue in the future. You know, we have little problems in our country, but we try to solve. And we continue with this effort in the future. No? Thank you very much for the opportunity to give my speech to you. Well, in Spain, during the last 30 years, we have a strategy to empower the women, no? And this strategy plan for gender equality in sustainable development and the rural environment has special areas of work, no? And special programs, no? To facilitate jobs, opportunities, and public services for women, for example, kindergarten for employment women, or guarantee the organization of women in the fields. And well, this is a plan to work to the mainstream gender perspective within all rural development policies and measures. Now, through this action, we not only achieve gender equity, but also prevent depopulation. That is very important also in this question. But the Spanish cooperation has always worked in the gender equality and approach, recognizing the special difficulties of rural women when it comes to facing food insecurity. In this regard, you know that Spain has important support in bilateral and multilateral programs. We have two successful programs in Guatemala and in Bolivia, and also in the Maghreb, and this experience is very successful, and I think it's very important to focus on them. And in multilateral initiatives, we have a special fund, you know, United Nations Women's Funds for Gender Equality. You know that Spain support with 50 million euros, and there are important also fund that is a fund for women empowerment in Africa, that we have 10 million euros. And the third initiative, important initiative, is the World Bank's Action Plan, and we work also with these three initiatives. No? And I think this is our commitment with the international, national gender policy. And I think that it's necessary to put more resources, more investment in the program of gender, and especially in programs of women and rural women. Sometimes there are very specific actions. We have one of them. Let me say something about, for example, our initiative in question of water and sanitation. You know, we have a very important fund of 800 million of euros with the Inter-American Bank for Latin America. We have 19 countries, but there are a specific action, no? And I think it's important to not to have only a sporadic and limited scope, no? The empowerment of rural women needs a global strategy, and involve the women in all the strategy, and they must take the decision and include it in all the programs of the government in the question. For this the question, I think that it's necessary to have priority in the rural development and agriculture policies for programs, national development plans, and it's very, very important to give the access to the women to the new technologies and to involve in this decision. And for us, also, it's very important to eliminate all the discrimination against the rural women, as well as, for example, the limit of women's rights to the land, the property, and the heritage, or the laws who restrict their legal capacity. You know? I think it's necessary to avoid this question. Well, Spain, we continue involved and we continue to support women's and rural women in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd say it's more of a contrast than a contradiction between the way the two countries determine the deployment of their assistance for rural women. Vera Mercado is the Undersecretary General for Political Affairs of the Ministry of External Relations of Brazil. She joined the Diplomatic Academy of the Ministry of External Relations in 1967. Thanks so much for being here with us today, Ms. Mercado. Brazil successfully hosted the recent Rio +20 conference on sustainable development. What are your views on the links between the Rio +20 conference and follow-up process and the economic empowerment of rural women? And also, Brazil has been a leader in the area of South-South cooperation, supporting the economic empowerment of rural women. How do you see South-South cooperation as an advantage or lever for supporting the empowerment of rural women?
Thank you very much. Now, before I answer your questions, I would like to say how pleased I am to be here to see and to greet Madame Bachelet, the first woman to become a president in South America, and she was an outstanding leader, a political leader, inspirational not only in Chile but I think in all the Americas, especially in Brazil. Also very pleased to see my fellow countryman, Francisco Graziano, now Director General of FAO, and we were very, very pleased and honored to see him elected as the Director General of FAO, and we continue to wish him all the best, all the success in his task. And I was also elated to see President Ellen Johnson Seiffel. Really, she is a wonderful force, a strength of nature, still more than I thought she was. But anyway, with these introductory remarks, I would like to say that really Brazil well hosted Rio +20. It was a wonderful conference, probably the most attended conference in the history of Brazil and the United Nations. I would like to share with you that we welcome the launching of a 5-year joint program aimed at economically empowering women, rural women. We see with appreciation that the program target of peoples of Ethiopia, Guatemala, Kyrgyzstan, Liberia, Nepal, Niger and Rwanda. My country also has a special interest in the issues of gender equality and gender empowerment. And with the guidance of the first woman elected president of the Republic of Brazil, we are consolidating the promotion of national development by combining sustainability and economic growth with the reduction of social differences. And this is an equation that was very much tackled during Rio +20. Brazil has placed women in the center of public policies by carrying out a number of joint actions between the Secretariat of Agriculture, the Ministry of Policies for Women, acting together in these programs. In that sense, I would like to highlight the Technical Assistance and Rural Extension Program, which includes technical support needed to give appropriate care to family agriculture, with a special concern for the preservation of biodiversity. I believe that Professor Graziano, when he was heading institutions of agricultural research and programs, was very much responsible for much that we've been doing in this field. The program has served more than 51,000 women among family farmers, quilombolas. Quilombolas are the residents or areas of Afro-descendants in Brazil that opted to live apart from the bigger society. But the program included also fishers, small-scale fishers, and in the indigenous communities. I would like also to refer to the Productive Organization Program. It's a Brazilian program that ensures women's access to public policies to support production and trade of their products to promote economic independence. By 2012, over 140 projects have been funded under this program, benefiting more than 79,000 women. Those are some of the good practices in the field of rural women that Brazil would like to share with you and with the international community, showing how our country links to the Rio +20 conference and the economic empowerment of rural women. Regarding the follow-up process of Rio +20, women heads of state agreed upon a call to action with concrete recommendations of the empowerment of women in the framework of sustainable development. The call to action brings specific elements to the protection of rural women, as women heads of state called upon all states, and I quote, to eliminate all discriminatory barriers faced by women, including rural women and women in situation of vulnerability, and to take proactive measures to address the factors preventing women from equally assessing, owning, and managing productive resources. End of quotation. As mentioned by President Dilma Rousseff last Tuesday before the General Assembly, many people consider that women are half the sky, but we want to be half of the earth as well, with equal rights and opportunities, free from all forms of discrimination and violence, capable of building our own emancipation, and with it, of contributing to the emancipation of all. End of quotation.
Wow. Women are half the sky and we want to be half the earth as well. I like that. I'll use it.
Make it yours.
Thank you very much. FOCO. FOCO Ventus is the FOCO is the Director of Corporate Sustainable Development for Royal DSM. At present, he is also the Program Manager for the Global Partnership DSM UN World Food Program. World DSM is a global science-based company active in health, nutrition, and nutrition materials. DSM's CSR focus is to improve nutrition. FOCO, the private sector. We all say we can't do it without you. And the private sector recognizes more and more the power of investing in agriculture and rural women's empowerment. What, in your view, is the role of philanthropic organizations and the private sector corporations in promoting the economic empowerment of rural women and their food nutrition security?
All right, thank you very much. First, I want to, from a sort of a personal perspective, want to take a step back, because I cannot be the role model that we've heard today so many times, and I heard some very strong women here today, and I have to be very humble. I will not be that sort of role model as what I've heard here today. So I think that's a very beautiful example, and I think a very important statement to make. We need the role models as we've heard them today. So I think keep on going and keep on talking about your experiences. It's extremely important. Second is also a bit on a personal note. I hear a lot of hope. I hear a lot of positivism, and that's important. I have a daughter, 20-year-old daughter, who's raising very critical questions of what we do and what we have done and how we want to take it forward. And I think it's extremely important. Keep on raising those critical questions. I hear them at home, and it keeps me sharp, and it drives me, and it energizes me to do better. So, I mean, really congratulations to all the very strong women that we've been able to have here speak today. Beautiful example. I think that if we look at the problems are too big to be solved by one country, one company, one NGO. So we need to go together. That's for us an obvious thing. And that's also why we joined forces with the World Food Programme, because the problems on nutrition needs to be solved in cooperation and collaboration. I think what is an extremely important word for all of us is inclusion. I think the inclusion is the key. We need to work together. We need to get out of our silos. Men, women, north, south. We should stop having that difference. It's important that we bring together the competencies to start resolving. And that's what we did together with the World Food Programme. We, from the private sector, have certain competencies, but we don't have all the competencies that are needed to resolve the problem. We're talking here about economic growth, economic empowerment of women. And what is extremely important, I think, is healthy societies are made up by healthy individuals, and they create healthy economies. We think in building blocks, and the building block, an extremely important building block, is the group of rural women who help in resolving food and nutrition issues, food and nutrition security. They play an extremely key role in there. And they play a role, as Michelle Bachelet already said, in two angles. One, they play a role as entrepreneurs, and of course they also play a role as caretakers. So if we look at the role of entrepreneurs, what we as a company can do and what we as business can do is help technology transfer, and that's a big word, so that plays on very different roles. If I look at an example, in Bangladesh, we're looking at push-tea packets. Women are making their, from sort of the surplus from their own food production, they'll make products which go to market. Now, we can help improving the quality of the push-tea packets, but we can also help, and that has an economic value, but we can also help fortifying that, bringing nutrition into that push-tea packet, which has an health benefit. So we have a double hit there. We create additional value for the push-tea packet, and we create additional health impact for societies. Simple. If I tell it like that, you say, of course. Well, it's not always that obvious, but we can do it. How can we do it? We came into Bangladesh thanks to and in cooperation with the World Food Programme. We, as a company, are not able to reach out that far by ourselves. We need to do that together, and we will do that together. There's more of these examples of economic added value and health benefits. If you look then at the second role that I described, rural women as caretakers, then of course, and it's already, we are happy to hear that it's resonating more and more, the 1,000 Days Initiative. From conception to 2 years of age, children build the most important building blocks for their development for life, both mentally and physically. And what we see, of course, is that women there play an extremely important role from conception, and then most of the time young girls are not yet spotted and are not yet fed up to the quality level that is needed to give birth to a healthy child. So absolutely important there, and that's also where we work with a lot of organizations, the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, the World Food Programme, Amsterdam Initiative for Malnutrition, which Rob already mentioned, and many, many others, to reach women and look at the life cycle nutrition component. From conception, it's the mom. The first 6 months, it's the mother with exclusive breastfeeding. But of course, the mom cannot give more than what she has in her own body, so we need to make sure that she is well fed, so she can give all the nutrients to the child through exclusive breastfeeding. It's an extremely important component, which we would very much underscore here. Then from there on, if we start looking at other food components, there we need to make sure that we get the right nutrients to the child to develop to a healthy individual. And as I said before, healthy individuals make up healthy societies, and they are the building block for healthy economies. So investing in women is investing in the future, is that what we say. And I think that Forbes agreed with us in an article, recent article, which they wrote about it, where you see, of course, that women are investing more back in health of their family, health in their housekeeping, and in their immediate environment. So there, I think it makes so much economical and human sense to have this inclusion, and I hope that everybody will start recognizing this sort of no-brainer that rural women and women in general play in societies today and in the future.
Thanks so much, Coco. Helping remind us that this should be a no-brainer for us. I'm going to take the liberty as the moderator and ask you a question that you all didn't prepare for, but I think that could be very helpful to us. This is the first time that the Rome-based agencies have come together with UN Women for a specific initiative that we want to move forward. What will be really helpful, with 2 minutes from each of you, of give us a piece of advice of what do you see as the challenges and how do we overcome them to accelerate the progress towards economic empowerment of rural women, which is our theme for today. And you all come from a different perspective. You've worked with us. You know the work we do. You know the work on the ground. So give us some advice. Let's start with you, Rob.
Well, actually, you're now starting to deliver as one, and I think that's the most crucial thing. It's not only, I mean, the Rome-based agencies already started with that, although sometimes you see some overlap in mandates. But I think if you join forces like this, and you take, my advice would be broaden the group of actors you work with. As Foko just mentioned, I mean, see what a company like DSM can do. That's quite remarkable. And don't forget, and that's the most important, don't forget the local organizations. I mean, we have to do it there on the ground. So if we can find a nexus between the Rome-based agencies, UN Women, the private sector, and use us, bilateral donors, as enablers or catalysts, whatever you want to use us for, that's fine. And you get the cooperation on the local level, women's organization, etc. I mean, it's not that difficult to draw the picture. But to do it, to really do it, needs leadership, and you've shown leadership today. And wherever we can support you, we will do it.
Thank you. Milan?
I think the toughest word in the vocabulary of all of our institutions functioning well is coordination. We say it constantly, and it is truly hard to do. And I think if coming together on this project with the varying mandates, some of which overlap in some ways, all of which want to get to the same place, if there can be a determination of better ways to ensure that each does its job well, but at the same time focuses on what the other is doing so the gaps can be filled. Because, you know, there's great progress in one place, but not progress in the other, but somebody else could do the other, and imagine where we would get. So I think more innovative ways to look at this cooperative model. Secondly, I think the whole area of best practices. You know, we say this just like we say coordinate. Take it to scale. We've got so many good examples of what truly, truly works. And then we go on and try to figure out some other ways to do things. Why don't we really work together to take these things to scale? It's not like, you know, the Netherlands owns one model, Canada owns another model, we own yet a third model. You know, what works we should all be working on and taking it to a different place. Thirdly, I would say that as we look at our private sector friends, not just to look at those areas of cooperation that are specifically agriculture, and I'm thinking of technologies like cook stoves, like mobile technology. These areas are so related to the success of agriculture, to getting better agricultural results. And if you talk about women's economic entrepreneurship, this is a huge area for women to grow green economies. And I think there's a way to better integrate our concerns about, and rightful concerns about the environment, how that takes in the rural areas in positive ways, not just the negative, impactful ways, and how we use our friends in the private sector and what they're able to deal with as part of their normal course of business that can accelerate our efforts. So these are just a few ways, and we certainly wish you well.
Great advice. Thank you. Margaret.
Well, in terms of my free advice, I think just the fact that you've come together shows tremendous insight and leadership. I mean, you have to have unity of purpose and sort of a unified command, because if the leadership doesn't gel at the top and signal to your organizations that your expectations are that you're going to be working together from the top through to how you give effect to this on the ground, then it won't work. I would take the example of the health sector, the work that the health organizations have done, the work that we've done with them. For example, in maternal and child health, that we had a session earlier this week, Catherine, you were there, on H4+. And Michelle's a plus of the plus. They're only a couple of years ahead of you, but, you know, I think what bilateral donors have to do is we have to incent and encourage that kind of integration, not pull you apart, but help you integrate and coordinate your work, or we're part of the problem. And then that leadership and your leadership has shown how you can pull together. I think you also need to have a common scorecard, how to measure success. You have to have common results frameworks. It actually sounds easy. We all know that it's extremely difficult. We can't even really necessarily do it inside our own organization. But if we don't have that, we're not pulling in the same direction, and we won't be sending the same signals down through our organization. So just a couple really practical things like this. It's one of the hardest things to do, but we have failed to actually deliver in an integrated and coordinated way up till now, and kudos to you for taking this on.
Thank you. Great advice. Gonzalo, please.
Thank you. I think this is in this moment that we have a very strong difficulties in many countries, no? Especially in the donors countries with economic problems, financial problems. I think it's very important, a very good coordination, very good, at delivery as one. This is a good idea today to put the panel together and work together, because I think it's necessary to use very well our funds and our investments. No? This is the main point. And the second point, I think, is necessary not only ad hoc programs. No? I think that is necessary the strategies. I think this national plan push to the national plans, push to the countries to involve all the areas, and not only ad hoc programs. No? And in this way, I think it's necessary. In one hand, more investment, more funds, better coordination between agencies, push the different countries and push national plans to great programs, and think that we are in the new world, and the new technologies and the new strategies, I think is very important, and we must explore this area, because I think in this area there are very, very interesting and important possibility to the future. And the main important thing is that we must believe, and we must transmit, belief, than the empower of the women is the most important question for the future. No? The development is really enhanced in the future of the women, no? And I think that we must put funds, many effort in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vera, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I've been listening very attentively to my predecessors, and I think that valuable advice has been given. For instance, the strategy. It is basic to set up a strategy of action as a framework for programs and projects. Coordination is also very much important, but also adaptation. This is something that we haven't spoken about. But countries and regions in countries differ a lot among themselves in terms of the nature, the economic profile, the societal structure, the roles of men, women, and the sort of agricultural or industrial development they have. So I believe that it is, in order not to spend energy, money, and resources in general by just transposing a model to some other place, from one place to another, I believe that really we have to have a very precise evaluation of the possibilities that a project or a strategy even would be applicable and adaptable to different to the place or the situation that we would like to help, to change. Also, I believe that something that is very much important is to ensure economic conditions in general and culture, education for the population of any milieu. I believe that not only the education that is transmitted from mother to daughter, which is very, very much important these days, is something very valuable, but not enough. We have really to go deeper into education and try to get tools to assess reality, to act in the reality in the most adaptable way to get better results. I think these are the information or my thoughts that I would like to share with you. And I thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vera. Foco.
I would have 3 advices, not only to the UN agencies based in Rome, but I think in general for all of us. Let me share them and then sort of explain a little bit what I mean. 1 is bring together essential competencies. 2 would be innovation. And 3 is organize as close to the beneficiary or as close to those who we are talking about. If I elaborate a little bit on these 3 items, 1 is bring together the essential competencies. Let's stop thinking in organizational terms. It's so old-fashioned that we still think in organizations. We need to think in issues that we need to resolve. The issues are burning, the issues are big, and let's not have anybody think that he or she will be able to solve them alone. So if we take that as the starting point, then let's rethink this and then have the organization maybe as a means of sort of doing things efficient, but not as the leading source. The issue is the leading issue. That is what we need to focus on, and that's what we need to resolve. That, I think, is a complete different perspective and a different way of looking at things. So that would be my first advice, and not only to the Rome-based agencies. We are just as bad in that, and anybody can still learn in that. So let's maybe take that away from here, that we sort of start to act in line with that sort of thinking. The second one is innovation. There is so much, and it was already mentioned, the private sector. There is so much that we still have in our pipelines that we could do, but will not do because somehow it will never reach the market, it will never be economically viable. Let's investigate what keeps us from bringing things to the market, technology transfers that would be possible, empowering rural women, and would not take place. What is stopping that from happening? And let's start taking away those barriers, and let's start innovating large scale. Again, the issues are big. Is this micro? They're back on again. And then the third thing is organize as close as possible to those that we are actually talking about. It shouldn't be something that I do behind my desk in Heerlen in the Netherlands. You've never even heard about that place. Or that somebody's doing in New York. But what can be done as close as possible to the beneficiaries should be done as close as possible to the beneficiaries. And I think that is something which WFP is applying right now in their organization. And I can very, very strongly support that because that's what it's all about, and that's where we make the difference.
Thank you very much, Foko. Thank you to all of our panelists. And let me just say, as you were talking, giving us advice, all the focal points from the 4 agencies were writing furiously. So hopefully you will see much of what you suggested reflected in our going forward actions. I want to bring to your attention a booklet that was distributed last year at UNGA called Women's Economic Empowerment to Foster Food Security, published by the Dutch. Rob does have copies of these available for any of you who'd like to receive one. With that, thank you all very much. Now, as I have one more housekeeping thing I need to do, and that is I was given a responsibility that I have failed to perform. And that is, Kanayo Nwanzi called me a number of times, apologizing that he could not be here today. He is committed, and IFAD is committed to this work, to this partnership. Unfortunately, he had a commitment on another continent that he agreed to some 6 odd months ago, and because this was at the end of the week, he was unable to be with us. But he is with us in spirit, and he is well represented by the focal points on these issues from IFAD. I'd now like to turn to a 3-minute video with messages from the field, messages from rural women, more importantly, in the field. These women live in 3 of the pilot countries where our joint program will be implemented.
My husband is not strong enough to support me. Since I got married, I've had 5 children and work is hard. Since we got irrigation, we have good farmland, and I ask people to plow the land for me. Before the irrigation, my only source of income was firewood and charcoal, which I took to the market, and I supported my family with the money that I got from that. Now, thank God, the situation is good. It's better. Once you have water, you can produce whatever you like. Unlike earlier times, our livestock never dies. Even physically, we are much better.
What I like about WFP is that they have taken us to different places, and we have learned a lot. They always talk to us about the future, about new projects. We learn how to control pests and about new varieties of seed that yield more. And we can share that information with other farmers. I like telling them about the things that we have learned. Once I met a man on a bus and I encouraged him to sow his seeds the same way that we do now, so that he could have better results. This morning I was on the bus and he said to me, "Look, I planned it the way that you told me to." And look how well the crop is coming out. I'm going to be able to plant beans in the street, he said. And after, I'm going to tell you how much my yield was.
My biggest challenge every day is to wake up early in the morning, to wander through the bush to find leaves to sell, and be able to feed my children for the day. I would like to do business. I used to sell fish and tomatoes, but with these never-ending crises, I have lost all my money. My dream is to have startup money to begin my business and depend less on handouts.
Well, I want to see closer health facilities to help women deliver babies close to home. And my dream is to give the knowledge I have received to my children about how to preserve our land from soil erosion. So that, like in this place here, we can have better fields to grow more food.
I would like to tell the world that they should be more concerned about farmers. I would tell them that there are people who, today in these times, have lost too much. There are farmers who are not able to continue this year because of how much was lost last year in the drought. I would ask them to offer a solution to this, that they offer financial support for the people, not handouts, but money that will help them to move forward.
Let me wrap up here for our panelists and thank you on behalf of not just WFP, but the 4 organizations for the work that we are going to do. But I'd officially like to turn it over to the representative from IFAD, Lakshma Menon, who will close the meeting for us.
Thank you, Ertharin. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, it's difficult to find closing words that will be more meaningful than the words that you've just heard and the images you've just seen. So let me conclude by expressing my gratitude to the panel members, the keynote speakers, for their contributions, the lively discussion. On behalf of all the 4 agencies involved in this joint program, let me also express my thanks to the governments of Brazil, Canada, Liberia, and the Netherlands for their valuable support to this event. We've come a long way. We've heard a lot about partnership, and we thank you for the advice that the panelists have given us. The 4 agencies, I mean, we do work together. It's just taken us some time. Yes, we did it. We did it. It's been less than a year ago when the 4 agencies met in Rome on the occasion of World Food Day. And we forged the commitment to work together towards poverty reduction through rural women's economic empowerment. So yes, we're getting there. The real challenge lies ahead of us, and that challenge is to take that commitment and translate that into action. Let us move forward, working together to fulfill our promise to the rural women and to support them in their role as providers, producers, decision makers, change agents. And the action has already begun. Focal points from each agency are working with stakeholders to foster dialogue with partners from government, rural organizations, civil society. Before the end of the year, consultative workshops will be held in each of these focal countries, which will help align the program to national priorities and to ensure full partnership from all the partners and the stakeholders. The Rome-based agencies look forward to welcoming all those who can attend to the October event on October 15th in Rome on Rural Women's Day, when we will be presenting to a larger audience. We will be presenting this program under the framework of the 39th Committee on World Food Security. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of energy inside this room. You've heard it, you've heard the words, you've seen the images. That combined with the presence of people like Elizabeth and Kebe, bring to us that the real protagonists in this process are the rural women themselves. Let's not forget that. And as I leave today, I'm confident that despite the challenges ahead, we have built a partnership that can achieve a transformation in the lives and the livelihoods of rural women. Thank you.